This is a thread about education. And I want to share it with y'all because I think it is relevant to a bunch of the points that we've brought up over the last year in regards to education and teaching. This professor says, yes, college students have lost their ability to read. I have taught lit for 24 years. The threshold started to decline in the late aughts and nosedived during COVID. A thread with observations plus how I get my students to read all or at least most of the readings I assign. Before I get into the thread, I'm going to say very, very, very nicely that when I was in college, I definitely started losing the aptitude to read things for two reasons. One, when it came to physical text, it was very hard to find a place to focus. Like I wasn't one of those I'm gonna sit in a coffee shop for 3 hours or I'm gonna sit in the quad or the lounge and do my work there. I usually wanted to go home. As time moved on in the world, I guess maybe I could have used my time on campus a little differently. But at that point, I'd be living on campus and I wasn't aware of how bad my mental health situation, how bad I wasn't raised. I wasn't raised on the morals, or I should say the laurels of noticing where things could be easier and making things easier for myself. I was already dealing with a lot, and I feel as though I was one of those, there's always one. It's like 40% of every freshman class. It's going to be just like high school until it's not. Until it's not. Very sorry. Had to yawn. So I definitely can understand, especially after COVID, not having those university spots and spaces and how things have changed with social distancing and just the overall awkwardness that you feel going outside in today's day with everything going on, as we usually say. But the second reason was because a lot of the texts had to be gotten a certain way. So if I wasn't certain I could log in here, there, print out my essay, print out a book, if I needed to print something out because I didn't have a phone for online usage anywhere else but a computer, and I wasn't going to sit there and wait for a computer to open, it definitely was that texts were gate kept. And when you had to buy a book, you had to it was very hard to share with people. It was just overall too confusing for me to really dive into it. And my ADHD obviously exploded during that time. So I was already lost. I was already a lost cause. How I got through it, I don't know. Next. For lit classes, I require paper texts. I email students ahead of the semester and explain this so they are not horrified on day one. They can opt out and use e-text if they come to me with a reason, disability, etc., but they have to provide a reason. I never say no. For creative writing classes that require shorter readings, I stand at the Xerox machine and copy every single thing that we will read and distribute a packet at the beginning of the semester. They appreciate this very much. They never have to chase down an assignment, and it's free, which already is explaining to you the difference in how you might have to handhold students now versus the aptitude that was commonplace in 2008. The people charging for printing. I emphasize writing in text. I teach review how to annotate a text. Pens or pencils are also required. We start each text by reading aloud in class. The seal is broken, the book is easy to get back into next time. We discuss what the book is telling us about how to enter it. Every time reading is due, I give a reading check, 5 to 10 questions, no analysis, just to make sure they've read to the end. They swap quizzes with a classmate and we go over the quiz and they grade each other. Conscientious students love the easy A. Slackers can't hide. Being mad at students for not being more into reading helps no one. They have been trained by their devices to seek quick pleasure hits, not the slow pleasures of reading. I am a writer who grew up in the analog age and I can't give a book the same attention I once did. College has made it so much worse during COVID by lifting the consequences of not showing up, not doing the work. My institution has yet to bring back attendance policies and students are used to calling the shots now. Once students asked me for permission to miss a class. Now they tell me they're going to miss a class or even an exam and then sign their emails, thanks for understanding. This is where we are now. I also give I also give exams. With Blue Books, I provide them. Remember when students had to buy their own? Students need way more help preparing for exams than they used to, and they crave very exact rubrics. So we do a whole practice exam the week before, slowly and together. When I first taught my literature of photography class in 2009, I taught 9 books. One of them was Agui's Let Us Now Praise Famous Men. They read this monster, no pushback. It is unfathomable to imagine teaching a book like that in a 100-level class today. In that class, I also taught Nathaniel Hawthorne's House of the Seven Gables. It is a weird but gratifying book that teaches so much about the early days of photography, and is thematically pertinent to so many things this generation cares about. But they can't do it anymore. So I pick my texts with the objective of challenging them where they are. I still assign Barths and Sontag, and they enjoy them, but they are short texts. I have reduced the number of pages, but still teach an array of texts: more stories, essays, poems, fewer novels, long books. For some reason, some educators expect students will lose it if you ask them to read on paper. This is not true. My students thank me every semester. They know they've lost something in the digital age. They want reading to be easier, more pleasurable. On a final note, if you are an academic who thinks written texts are racist and therefore expecting students to read them is in the spirit of white supremacy, you are part of the problem. The suggestion that we should have lower expectations of the reading abilities of college students who are POC, poor caregivers, etc., actually sounds pretty racist to me. Wow, this is wild. I wish I had something to hawk right now, but really the response to this crisis in learning is heartening, and it's very meaningful to me that the one and only viral tweet of my Twitter life is on the subject of teaching methods. I love what I do. I do want to clarify that I was speaking mainly about undergrads in a 100, 200 level lit class who are not necessarily lit majors. I also teach upper level undergrads and MFA students, and while the specifics of their reading histories are all over, they love reading a lot. So my ending response to that will be, I don't know where we'll ever end up in the dual age of still hanging on to physical while having digital. There are obvious advantages to text that you can zoom in on, that can be read to you, that can be analyzed. But to assume that we are ever getting rid of the pretext, the hardcover books is to say that we forego keeping records in history. And I doubt that that's ever going to get lost in any style of era that humans will fall into from now into our eventual swallow into the sun.